So our show, according to websites and things that report this, our show is scheduled to run through September 28th. That seems like a waste. I mean, we rehearsed this. We paid for these costumes. He paid for these costumes. While we were in here celebrating all of them, tickets changed. And we have been extended for 4 more months. So, we're going to be here until January 25th, 2026.
You know, Heathers is in the city right now, and people have been asking me, who are you? What Heather are you? What character are you? And, you know, there's a little bit of JD in us all. I'm wearing this blue for Veronica, drink green for Heather Duke, don't have anything yellow for Heather McNamara, but in truth, I'm Heather Chandler. Anyway, you just saw our video from opening night of Heathers. Heathers has extended to 2026. Now, what is up with all this Heathers talk? What is this, a Heathers podcast now? No. We have the choreographer of Heathers on today, the great Gary Lloyd. Now, Gary is our first guest who's from the UK. All right. So we get to talking a lot about the differences between West End and Broadway. And he also worked on Thriller Live in the UK, which was a huge show pre-MJ that ran for something like 11 to 13 years. There was a point in the podcast that you'll see where he's worked with so many people of note and so many incredible people that he's choreographed for that I just went down the list of like, okay, tell me something about Leona Lewis, about Neo, about Kelly Clarkson, about Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney. I mean, it is remarkable, and he got to telling us everything about it. And currently, he's choreographing his first New York show with boom, 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 Heathers, the musical, the much anticipated Heathers musical. Now, we filmed this before opening night, and I got to go to opening night with him, and it was just a treat. The show is so fun. And I'll tell you what, is that Heathers has become, it's a sensation, right? I mean, when I was a kid, it started to come up, and now it's even bigger than it once was, than it was when it originally came and when it was even in London and the pro shot, and now it's like even bigger. The cast is phenomenal. Mackenzie Kurtz, who we talk about on this podcast so frequently, is comedy gold. So JD, Casey Likes, also brilliant. Elizabeth Teeter, Olivia Hardy, Lorna Courtney, my goodness, loved her in Anne Juliet, but she's, I would say, even better in this. She is so funny and also so clever in her choices and vocally a monster. She is insane. I think that I don't need to tell you to go see Heathers, because I think that in this city, everyone either has their tickets to Heathers, is getting their tickets to Heathers, or is being ridiculed for not having tickets to Heathers. So, but Gary's choreo, I should mention, is so fun and made you want. I turned to him in the middle of the show during opening night and I was like, I want to jump on stage with them and do this choreo for Never Shut Up Again, because it's so fun and electric and just like has such a pulse. So we're congratulating Gary on Heathers, the musical. And I'm so excited for you to see this episode because he has so much clever insight and brings so much with him. And we get to play in some fun games, you know, describing the UK versus US theater terms and stuff like that. So here it is. Today, I want to be like Gary Lloyd. I want to be like you. 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 Welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes. Today, I want to be like Gary Lloyd.
Wow.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is a blast.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for asking me.
I'm so glad that we worked this out through Richard, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And we start the podcast with the same question every time, and it's who was your I Want to Be Like You when you were a kid?
Oh, wow. Well, I grew up in the 80s. I'm the same age as all the characters in Heathers. So I got to discover people like Gene Kelly and Jerome Robbins, who were my, kind of idols in terms of performance and choreography.
Yeah.
A bit later on. But the one thing that we had access to on a regular was Fame. And that hit our TV screens every Thursday night, 7:30.
Really?
And so Debbie Allen has always been my I want to be like you.
Wow, that's awesome.
Her energy, just seeing how she's balanced being a performer, being an artist, being a creative.
Yeah.
Everything that she's done for women in the industry, she's still going and she's still making a mark on the industry, and I find that so inspiring.
Have you ever met her?
No.
Oh, okay. Soon, hopefully. So you're from the north of England, right?
Yes,
What's the
yes.
town called exactly?
I was born in Leeds.
Okay.
Yeah, so grew up in the northeast. So yeah, kind of a working class area where there was lots and lots of opportunity for talent to flourish because we had nothing else to do. So there's a lot of people that I grew up with that perform and that create that are doing really, really well, and I think it's from kind of humble beginnings that, we grabbed onto something and we've made it work.
When did you start dancing? How old were you?
I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so was there a big, so I've never been I've been outside of North America, I guess. I've been to the Caribbean, right? But really not outside. I've never been to Europe at all. So what was it like in where you're from in terms of the arts and dancing? And was there, here in New York, there's a dance school in every corner, it feels like.
Yes. Well, it's not like the Caribbean, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The story goes, my parents obviously spotted a kind of musical talent in me and my sister, actually, and sort of sat us down and said, right, okay, we want to do something with this musicality that you have.
Yeah.
We'd send you to a dance class, or you can learn to play the piano. They were the two options, and I was leaning into the piano thing for the longest time.
Yeah.
And my dad would kind of tease me and wind me up and say, if you play a wrong note, they're going to grab your knuckles and wrap it with a ruler. And
oh wow.
Yeah, and it just at the last minute, I kind of panicked and went, no, I'll do the dance thing.
Yeah.
And we never looked back. And that, at the time where we lived, it was ballroom and Latin American dancing. So I started out in that world.
Wow.
So it's been really interesting seeing, what you call Dancing with the Stars, we call Strictly Come Dancing.
Yes.
Have such a massive resurgence because that was my life competitively from the age of 6 to about 13, 14.
Wow, that's super interesting.
Yeah, and then we moved town. Couldn't find a similar school and fell into stage and musical theatre.
Wow. So you discovered musical theatre pretty much into young adulthood.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, late teens.
Was it something that you were always I'm going to pursue this professionally? Once you got to teenager,
yeah, 100%. And even with the ballroom, I was choreographing.
Yeah.
And then
really? Oh wow.
Yeah. And then moving on to the stage and even as a younger child, I was into West Side Story and Cats and Phantom of the Opera, and I had all the cassettes at the time, and I would just listen to them on loop, and imagine what they looked like.
Did you see a lot of shows in the West End?
Not until I was about 16.
How far are you from the West End in terms of proximity?
About a 4-hour drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's like being from
Which
upstate.
is nothing for you guys.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's all the time. Driving from Long Island to here can be a 4-hour drive sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or there and back, it is 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you said you imagined what they would look like because
I would sit and I guess choreograph them in my mind.
Yeah. I wondered what things, because to us, like you mentioned, Gene Kelly, Jerome Robbins, West Side Story, Phantom even, these are pillars of theater. But there's such a difference when it comes to American theater and British. The way, I guess, in terms of perception, right, is like we look at those shows as the pillars, but I didn't know if they were pillars as much globally. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because I go like, okay, no, Jerome Robbins is a global icon, not just an American, in the theater.
Oh, absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's interesting. So I want to talk about, you were Mungo Jerry in Cats.
I was.
In Hamburg.
I was.
That's amazing. How old were you when you did it?
I was just 18.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I was just 18.
Was that the first professional job you'd ever
It
done?
was.
In theater, that is?
And the interesting part of that story is that Warren Carlyle, who was a very big name over here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We were the same age. We'd both, what you would call, dropped out of college. We both auditioned without permission for this show, and we both got the job.
Whoa.
And we met each other at the airport. We'd never been on a plane before.
But you guys knew each other already?
No.
Oh.
We were at two different colleges.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah, so we became a big support system to each other and big friends, but we kind of charted the same journey into that show.
Oh my gosh. So what do you mean by audition without permission?
Well, at the end of the second year in college, it's a 3-year course, you weren't allowed to audition for work.
Okay.
A lot of my friends were in the year above. They were all auditioning, to get ready to graduate and leave. And I got dragged along to this audition. And Warren's story is very similar, and we both booked it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Who was Warren? Who did Warren play?
He was Alonzo.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did you think I was asking
like,
who?
yeah, who
oh
was
no,
Warren?
I know who Warren Carlyle is. Currently, for the record, and I haven't seen it yet, but currently Warren Carlyle is represented with Pirates of Penzance. He directed and choreographed that right now.
You need to see it. I saw it last week.
Oh yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, I have a friend in it. I want to see it. Yeah, and I was in the dance call for it, and it was tough.
Yeah. So Warren will tell you that it's one of his least dancey things he's ever choreographed.
Yeah,
but
right.
it is full on. And I don't think I've ever seen a cast work as hard as the cast of Pirates.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, he also is Hugh Jackman's tap choreographer for Music Man. Like, he did all the Music Man stuff, and he's like, And he also posted recently that he's working on something new, too, which is exciting.
Yeah,
that's
he's
great.
directing a play.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, very cool. So that's so funny that you guys had that, like, parallel.
Yes.
When did you realize? Like, when did you guys tell each other one another's
plane.
story? Oh, really?
We were literally on the plane. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So you auditioned for it in the UK and booked it for a Germany production, or was it like a? Oh wow, cool. I mean, Hamburg has a huge theater scene.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize until you see some of the Disney scraps like Tarzan or like Mary Poppins. They become huge successes out there.
I think either Hamilton or MJ is in the theatre where we did Cats.
Oh, right now.
So it's
cool.
the biggest.
So I mean, that was a huge thing for you to book, especially at such a young age. How long were you in that show for?
2 years.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow. What did you gain from that? I mean, like, especially as a dancer, that's the dance show.
Yeah, it was my 3rd year of training.
Right.
We did class every day. We were working with older people, obviously, because Warren and I and a couple of the others were babies. And the show was an international cast, so we got to work with Australian performers and American performers, people that had been on Broadway, and so we gained a lot of worldly experience from different cultures and learnt about the industry in a much broader sense than we would if we'd have sort of began in the West End.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
And you see kids that book shows in the West End, and they hop from show to show, and they don't progress as people, right? Or as performers. They just become kind of neutral to the environment, whereas this gave us a real kind of sense of gratitude.
I was going to say,
and it sort of put us in our place a little bit. And, we learnt a lot from the people around us.
And I think it's a similar lesson comes from what we talk about all the time, is like, you book something that's equivalent to Broadway, which that is, and then subsequently you're like, well, I'm going to be just exactly that, bouncing from show to show to show, and it's never going to stop, but it's not really the case for most people. For some people it is, we've learned, but for most people it's not the case, and that's very humbling, I think. You made your West End debut in Starlight Express.
I did.
That's so exciting. How old were you then? How long after Cats was that?
21, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you lived in Hamburg for 2 years and then went back home?
Yeah, I went back home, and a good friend of mine who was leaving college at the time, I think the same college that I was at, she had auditioned for, it was a Royal Caribbean cruise. And I was out auditioning. I think I had a Les Mis audition in the morning, and went to meet her for lunch, and she was just finishing up, and the team came out and they just said, look, we are desperate for men for this cast. Would you come in and audition for us? And I did. And they offered us both the job on the spot, and it was a 4-month contract originally. So we kind of looked at each other at age 20, and was like, oh yeah, okay, Caribbean cruise, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I took it. We did it together. We had a great time. But during that process, the choreographer, who was Liza Minnelli's choreographer at the time, was fired from the job. Even though she did a wonderful job, but the producers didn't like some of the work, and she'd gone off to Vegas to work with Liza.
Wow.
And I'd been assigned the dance captain role, and we had like 3 days before we opened, and they just assigned me with changing all of this work. So that was kind of my first experience as a choreographer with responsibility, which was huge. So I ended up staying with the company and running the auditions and the cast changes.
Wow.
And, so I ended up doing a year of that before coming back to London
to do Starlight.
and that's when Starlight happened. Yeah.
Wow. So did you come back to London knowing you had it already, or were you just like coming back to London?
No, I booked it in Germany, and then decided that I didn't want to stay in Germany for another couple of years, and that kind of introduced me to Arlene Phillips and the team. And then when the auditions came round for London, the musical director from Cats was the MD on Starlight. So it was the start of you kind of using your network to find out about opportunities and auditions, and that was a door that was open for me because I'd already had that relationship.
Right. That's interesting. So you're swing in Starlight.
Yes.
And that's your first time swinging, right?
Yes.
Talk to me. We have a bunch of swings on, and talk to me about what your swing trick was at the time. So people do index cards. People have binders. What were you looking at that, especially at that young of an age, like diving into swinging?
Yeah, I covered 13 roles.
Oh my gosh.
So I covered all of the engines and the components, the ensemble parts. All had different escape tracks and various tricks that they had to do. Yeah. And then I covered some of the principles, Rusty and the Rockies and Flat Top and things like that. So it was a big binder. To put together, and again, I think that was the start of my putting that swing folder together. Was the start of my brain going, right, okay, this. I'm looking at patterns here and creating choreography on a large scale. So I just really took that opportunity and made it work for my ambitions to become a creative.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing too about Starlight Express is that you're roller skating. You're literally roller skating.
Thinking on your feet at 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the show was at the Apollo Victoria, which is where Wicked is playing now.
Oh, wow.
So that's a huge theatre.
Huge space,
And we skated all the way around stores and up into the circle.
Oh my gosh.
It was a workout.
That's incredible. We always ask what someone's first Broadway show was. I want to ask you what your first West End show was.
First West End show that I saw, I think it was Cats.
Oh, really?
It was either Cats or Blood Brothers.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It might have been Blood Brothers,
Which
actually.
Blood Brothers was a huge success there.
Yeah, and in fact, the first theatre show I ever saw was Joseph. And that was on tour, and that was sort of in my area. It was a school trip.
Oh, nice.
And I think Blood Brothers was the first show. Yeah, it was. While I was in my first year at college. And both of those shows were produced by Bill Kenwright, who is the producer of Heathers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, I've had a 10, 11-year relationship with that company as a creative.
Yeah.
So that's a real full circle moment coming from seeing those shows and being inspired by those productions and then becoming part of the family.
When did you pivot? I mean, you mentioned all these little like nuggets of where you see that choreography was on the horizon. When did you say, okay, I'm going to pivot. I think this is what I want to do with choreography?
Probably at about age 10.
Really? You wanted to be a choreographer before a performer? almost, or more than
I
anything.
wanted to do it all. I think
Yeah.
when you're that age and you're passionate, I didn't do anything else. Wasn't interested in anything else, you know. I was very good at language at school, but history, maths, I did it all, but I didn't care about any of it.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to perform. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to put other people on stage.
Right.
In my last 2 years at school, when they're kind of doing career stuff with you, we would there'd be like a Wednesday afternoon of you can go and do mechanics and you can go in that studio and do this and do that.
Right.
They gave me the school hall to hold dance workshops.
Right. Right.
And so I was teaching rather than partaking in
Already.
careers. I was kind of exercising what I wanted to do. So I don't remember knowing anything else or wanting to do anything else.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I think when you are an ambitious creative, and I'm sure you've heard this from many people, you only have one goal. You know, so your focus is there. It's kind of a laser vision towards what that goal is. It gets much more complicated later on, but when you're a teenager and early teens, you're gunning for that one thing.
Yeah. We talked to a lot of choreographers about finding your voice and finding your style as a choreographer.
Yeah.
We mentioned like Debbie Allen or Jerome Robbins. Like these people have very specific styles, but also Jerome Robbins could do Fiddler and West Side Story. Those are two very different things, and yet he's living in the same. What would you say is that for you, and then also how you found it?
Yeah. A big pivot for me was the last musical I performed in was a show called Oh What a Night, which was a very early jukebox show about a nightclub in the 70s. It was a disco musical. So the catalogue of music was Chic, Sister Sledge. It was like cool disco.
Yeah.
Studio 54 type thing.
Yeah.
And it was starring a pop star called Kid Creole, who I don't know if he was big over here.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
He's a New Yorker, but was really, really huge in the UK, and he's a fantastic performer. He's still going now. And so he was the lead, and I was one of the younger leads, and I was also the assistant choreographer on it. But it was directed by a guy who works in the commercial field. He's the creative director for a boy band called Take That. I don't know if you know who they are.
No, Take That.
Huge in the UK and
really?
all over Europe. Yeah. He's also Adele's creative director, so he created her show in Vegas.
Wow. Okay.
You know, and lots of other artists and big stadium product and TV and stuff like that. So he was the director of the show. So he came from a different area, and so as I was stepping into becoming a creative, I was his associate.
Oh, okay.
So I was teaching this show around the world, but also working on TV gigs and with artists. And
I
so
see.
I went from performing in musical theatre to suddenly working on American Idol.
Yeah.
You know, becoming the creative director for all of their live stuff for the first 3 seasons over here. So I was kind of cutting my teeth as a creative, learning about video content and lighting design.
What did that entail, being a creative director versus a choreographer? Because that sounds like a completely different.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
And I was really thrown in at the deep end. You know, my first show that I ever opened as a creative director was at the Staples Center.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What show was it?
It was American Idol. Live.
Oh, it was. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. And I remember standing there just looking at it and thinking, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And how have I put this on? But you get thrown into these situations.
Yeah. So what did that entail for you then?
You do it. I had to put the set list together and work on the choreography, the creative, the video, the lighting, costumes.
Wow. That's wild.
So it's the same as being a theatre director, but without the storytelling, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of it is more technical.
It's much more technical.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I learned all about the technical side from big scale arena shows.
Yeah, yeah. So did you work on arena shows before American Idol, or was that your first time dealing with that kind of...
Yeah, as an assistant. So I learned with Kim Gavin was the director that I'm talking about. So I'd worked with him. And then stepped into that world.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that world it's fantastic and it's exciting, but it's quite repetitive from a creative perspective. So I was kind of like, right, I need to now sort of shift my way back to theatre because that's where my passion lies,
of course,
you know, where my heart is. So I did that, and I think the first thing I directed was a production of Jesus Christ Superstar, which did a Scandinavian tour.
Oh, wow.
Sweden and
Oh, my
Norway and
gosh.
Denmark. And,
Oh, gosh.
yeah, and then booked a show that landed in the West End, and it was a Ray Charles review. So very similar to Smokey Joe's Cafe.
Yeah.
But telling the story of Ray Charles through his music.
That's so interesting. I want to ask you a little bit about American Idol now that you mentioned it, because you said you worked on the first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
That was not
I'm
only
that
was
old.
that, well, no, it's not that, but it's the thing about American Idol is that at the time, not only are you being thrust into this like foreign world of the Staples Center, but also that show is new. Everything that they're trying to do here is new.
Yeah.
What was was the one in Britain first?
Yes,
it was
by a year.
Okay.
They rolled it out really quickly.
I was gonna say that show changed. She feels like it changed the entire TV space.
Yes.
What do you remember about being there, season 1, the first we're trying this, dipping the toe in with American Idol?
You picked up on a really good point, because the first season, particularly over here, it was so big.
Yeah.
And these kids were, they were kids.
Yeah.
Some of them were 16, 17.
Yeah.
And being told that they were going to be superstars for the rest of their lives. And they believed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge adjustment for some of them, especially some of the backgrounds of some of the people. And it was the start of those TV shows that kind of build kids up, and then only 2 of them will sort of get taken on and they'll survive, and the rest are left to fend for themselves. So it was very interesting.
It created a sensationalism. We talk about it with even the idea of auditions for all across the board.
Yeah.
The idea of the people behind the table is a very sensationalized idea, I think, because of those shows, for better or for worse. It has a bit of both when it comes to that. I think I think a big reason why people are so nervous to audition in certain respects has to do with because you don't know how the people behind the table are going to react
for those shows.
Yeah.
Well, I think by now, especially in the UK, I don't know what it's like here, but the public, it's gone full circle, because the public now know that they're in charge.
Yeah.
And I think the people auditioning, after a while, they knew that they were taking a risk and that they were part of a story. They were part of a sitcom that was being scripted, and
it was kind of being centered around
them. It wasn't just about your talent. It was what story can you bring with your talent to sustain so much in the competition. Yeah.
And there's really nothing like it. Now it feels like The Voice and X Factor and all these America's Got Talent, but there's really nothing like it. That's wild. So how come you left after the 3rd season for American Idol?
I think they knew that there was going to be it was going to last.
Yeah.
As long as it has.
Right.
I think it's gone away and come back again.
It went away and came back, but it's still pretty huge.
It's so entertaining. It's brilliant. Yeah. But I think, the show was born in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
The UK team was brought over.
Mm-hmm.
And a US
and then
team
they let
was
it
put
flourish
together, and, we went back in our box and, carried on over there.
How similar was it to the job that you did on X Factor UK? Because you worked on X Factor UK for a minute too,
in
right?
The beginning as well.
Were you creative director on that as well?
In the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. How long were you on that show?
Couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. This all coincided with me sort of flying back and forth doing UK Idol and American Idol, and then the X Factor started, and it all became a very similar job.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of pining for creating something
on your own.
Yeah, with more substance, and
right.
more storytelling, and kind of getting back to my roots, which was theatre.
Yeah. I have one last X Factor question, because when I saw that you worked on X Factor UK, were you on the seasons that One Direction was formed?
No, but I was asked to be their creative director.
Oh, really?
And I was working on a musical at the time.
What musical?
It was called 20th Century Boy, which was the life story of a glam rock star called Mark Bolan, who was a friend of David Bowie, and
I
and
think
He had a very short career and a tragic death, and it's a fascinating story. So I was developing.
You were already
that
working
at the
on that at the time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so funny. That's really interesting. Yeah, I had to ask about that because when I saw that you were on X Factor UK, I was like, and the years, I was like, I wonder if that. Okay, I want to talk about. I, in researching you, found some stuff that I want to ask you about. I'm going to riff off this, and you can tell me like a little bit about your arena career, that is. Okay?
Okay.
I'm just going to throw out some names of people that you've worked with, and you mentioned whatever you'd like to about. Ricky Martin.
Yes. That was it was the Queen's Golden Jubilee. So we have a lot of royal-based shows, the Royal Variety Performance,
and
interesting. The Jubilee and the Coronation, and there are these huge televised shows that are put together to celebrate our monarch.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the Golden Jubilee, which I think was in 2002. And Ricky Martin came over, and he was the opening act.
And what were you doing on it?
I was the associate choreographer on that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And what? Explain to me. Is he doing one number? Or is he doing like a full?
He came out. He did Living La Vida Loca.
Okay, yeah. Wow, how cool!
And if you find that footage, he missed his entrance. He was
no way
refusing to come to the stage, and it was a live. It was a televised broadcast, and it was live. And
oh my gosh,
and he missed his entrance. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay, Pink.
Yeah.
What did you work on with Pink?
That was the Brit Awards.
Okay.
Yeah. So that,
and you
that
were
was
also
back in the back in the
and you were
days.
choreographing for the Brit Awards. That's so. Explain to me what it means to be choreographing an award show like that, because that feels like something that are you choreographing every number for each respective artist? Or?
Sometimes, yeah, or you get brought in by the record company to work with certain artists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Do they use that choreography elsewhere, like music videos on their tours and stuff, or
tend to be kind
isolated?
bespoke moments, bespoke musical arrangements, bespoke performances with set pieces.
Oh, very cool. Neo. What did you work on with
so
Neo?
when I was working on Thriller Live, which was in the West End for 11 and a half years in total. So Neo was a big fan of the show, and he came in and we did some TV stuff with him.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Neo, as a kid, Neo was like all I heard every summer. There was always Closer, Miss Independent, like that. Those are like the songs of my childhood, you know. Okay, Leona Lewis.
Yeah, so Leona was on
the
X Factor,
TV shows.
so that was a spin-off from working with her on the show. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And I'm Kelly Clarkson, I imagine, through American Idol.
Yeah.
And the biggest one of all, when I saw this, my jaw dropped. Sir Paul McCartney.
Yes.
What did you work on with?
I worked with him a couple of times, and they again were on these Royal Variety Performances.
Oh,
he was on the Golden Jubilee, so the same show as Ricky Martin, and he came in. We had to close the set for his sound check, so there was this big. Sir Paul's coming, and everybody had to leave, and only a few of us were allowed to stick around. And he got on this piano, and he played a few notes, and he was like, yeah, that's fine. And then he played a 20-minute set just for fun, and just jammed for those of us that were sitting there listening. It was unbelievable.
That was just the sound check?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
That's unbelievable. I look at Paul McCartney as like almost not human. He's a legend. You know, he's like someone who's, you know, feels like he transcends celebrity.
Yeah, and yet he's probably the most down-to-earth person you'll ever meet.
Yeah, well, people always say that, right? It's like the people who are the top, the highest of the high, are the nicest, and the lowest of the low are the nicest, and then it's the middle that's a little, that can be a little more bumpy.
Yeah. I'm also what they call a companion, so it's like a patron of, he has a performing arts school in Liverpool.
Oh.
And it's in the building, which they've expanded massively now, but it's in the building where him and John Lennon went to school together.
Wow.
So he bought the building. It's the old grammar school. And it's now a fame school for musicians and artists and choreographers and dancers.
That's really cool. And you said you're a companion.
So I go there once a year, and I assess the students and talk to the graduates. And
how cool. And it's like a high school?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
wow.
College, yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned Thriller Live. I want to talk to you a little bit about Thriller Live. Thriller Live was a huge success it was in the West End.
Yes.
And it opened in 2006. Am I right about that? Yeah. And it was it wasn't necessarily like MJ in the sense that it's not necessarily a bio musical, is it?
No, it was
more of a review.
It was more a collection of performances that were sort of presented in concert form.
Right.
You know, so you would start sort of feeling like you were in the TV studio with the Jackson 5, but then you would step into a music video. So Smooth Criminal was kind of the music video on stage, you know, kind of restaged and reenacted. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Thriller, the same thing. And then, you know, some of the other stuff was presented like you would see it on tour. So it was kind of all of the best bits thrown into this insane concert.
Wow. How did you get that gig?
I was working with the production company that took it on another show. Yeah, again, just one of those network doors that opened. And Adrian Grant, he developed Michael's fanzine back in the day when fan clubs were a thing. Michael Jackson didn't have a fan club, would you believe? And I think Adrian was working on the Prince fan club, but realised that Michael didn't have one, and he reached out to Michael and went and met him. And Michael said, yeah, go ahead. And so he set up this fan club, which he ran for years and years and years. And he started putting together these concerts on Michael's birthday every year and just pulling fans who performed together to just put on a show, and they would sell tickets, and that money would go to the Heal the World charity, and this was like a regular thing. And the show just got bigger and better and better and better, and Adrian very bravely put a version of this anniversary concert on at the Dominion Theatre, which is our biggest theatre in the West End, and invited all of the UK producers. Wow. And the only producer that bit was a producer that I was working with. And so that sort of just went hand in hand.
Yeah.
They brought me in and they said, right, we want to take this, we want to build it up, you know, turn it into a commercial commodity and tour it and see what happens.
Well, with a project like that, you're using, especially when you're considering putting the music video on stage, you're using a lot of that original choreo, right?
Yeah, it was, the interesting thing was there was a lot of songs that had no choreo. You know, the music video might have just been Michael doing his thing, but there was no, you know, Rock With You, for instance, and some of the early stuff. But then you get to things like Beat It and Thriller, obviously. Yeah. Smooth Criminal, Billie Jean. You can't do anything but serve what was there. And Beat It, there was a chorus of choreo, so I would have to create the rest. And that was as a choreographer, the most fascinating thing was, you know, growing up on Michael Jackson. And actually, you know, I said I want to be like Debbie Allen. The other name in that really would be Michael Jackson, because in the 80s, you couldn't go to school and say, I want to be like Fred Astaire, because you would get your head kicked in, right? Yeah. But Michael Jackson did something that universally made everybody appreciate and accept men dancing. You know, it was acceptable to want to do the moonwalk or try out these moves that he was doing. He transcended all of that kind of prejudice and intolerance. And, you know,
and it's funny too, because a lot, when you look at Michael Jackson, is incredibly influenced by those styles of Fred Astaire even, or Bob Fosse, clearly. So it's interesting because he made a lot of that style mainstream, and a lot of it is considered a Michael Jackson style, but it stems from Fosse in a big way. And, you know, so that's interesting.
That was a massive part of his genius, I think, just doing his own thing with all of that classic material. But making it fresh and making it appeal to everybody.
Did he ever come see it?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
So you met him?
In the very, very beginning.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he was going to come and meet the cast, and we were going to go see This Is It. So there was a big arrangement happening.
Oh my gosh.
He picked out his disguise. And then he passed.
Wow. So you guys never got to see the tour. That was right at the point when it... Yeah. Wow.
So he was there. Well, we know the story.
Yeah. Well, what did he think of Thriller Live?
He's just so grateful, I think, and the family also just so grateful for anything positive, you know, that was being presented about him or said about him. I think by the point that the show came about, he'd been through so much in life.
Yeah, of course.
And in court and all of that stuff, that we were just a positive representation put together by a group of avid fans.
Right.
That wanted to say, this is what Michael Jackson was about to us.
Right.
We don't talk about anything else. We talk about the music and the creativity and everything that he stood for as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And they all, the whole family just really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's sweet. Did you get to tell him about how much of an inspiration he was to you?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow. That's special.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And Thriller Live is a huge success. Like you said, it ran for 13 years. Is that right?
Yeah,
years?
we toured for a couple of years, and then we were in the West End for 11 and a half before COVID hit.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And we were scheduled to move out of the theatre because we'd been in the theatre for so long. It needed so much work.
Right.
That we were gonna transfer to a different theatre. They were gonna refurb, and then COVID hit. Everything closed.
Gotcha.
And the story changed.
And then MJ became
and
what?
then MJ was developed.
Yeah.
And
But MJ, I think, just got to the West End this year.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it was just at the Olivier's this year. So it's funny because MJ it feels like the second MJ got here, we knew it wasn't going to leave. MJ came and it was like, all right, well, Neil Simon's going to be taken for years.
Yeah. And interestingly, a lot of our young Michaels are now playing Michael. Or MJ.
Wow.
In MJ the musical.
In MJ.
So it's a real full circle moment for them.
Yeah.
And obviously we're so proud of them, and they're doing brilliant.
Oh, that's
brilliant
special.
work.
That's so cool to be young Michael and then age into being Michael Jackson. That's so cool. Okay, I want to ask you about Heathers. So I was in the dance call for Heathers, and this was
me.
With you. And first, let me ask you. I should ask you first before I get there. Your knowledge of Heathers, your experience with Heathers, what you knew about Heathers going into Heathers.
Yeah. So as I've said, I'm the same age as these characters. So when Heathers came out, I remember, it was a Blockbuster video, VHS rental that we would get on the down low, and everybody would watch it. And it was a real cult thing that spoke to our generation. Yeah. Obviously, the movie is very dark.
Yeah.
The musical has all of those same themes, but the writers have done this incredible job of keeping the dead teens alive in the story as Veronica's conscience. And so with that comes this layer of, for the most part, this layer of musical comedy that doesn't exist, in the film, which is a dark comedy.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. How about the musical? When did you first discover the musical?
I only knew a couple of songs. So I was working at one of the colleges in London, Guildford School of Acting, where I was working with the likes of Jodie Steele, Erin Caldwell, Christina Bennington, all who played Chandler and Veronica in Heathers in London. Oh, cool. And some other names there as well. And so they were singing Dead Girl Walking and Freeze Your Brain and these. So I was hearing these songs, but I didn't know the show as such. I just worked on a production of Carrie, which we had a huge hit with at Southwark Playhouse, and that was my first time working with Paul Taylor Mills.
Okay.
And Paul is the whole reason behind Heathers happening in the UK. He came over to New York, he saw the show, he came back to Bill Kenwright and said, we have to do this musical.
Yeah.
Before anybody else does it, we have to bring it over.
Yeah.
And so that's how he kind of put mostly the Carrie team together with the Heathers team in the US.
Yeah.
And that's how we came together.
Interesting. Heathers has, we talked about this a little before filming. Heathers has become a super culty, similar to the movie, right? Is where it's like the fan base is super culty. I remember leaving high school, going into college, and hearing Dead Girl Walking, hearing 17, which is my favorite song. Amazing. Freeze Your Brain, and I'm like, what is this show? This is now Dear Evan Hansen is creeping into the mix. All these, and it feels like a resurgence of it happened because of those, like, I don't know if you want to call them like teeny bopper musicals, but that's what they became, is like this, like Heathers, Mean Girls came in shortly after that. And I was like, I just assumed that it was on Broadway. I assumed that it was this, because it has that. It has bigger notoriety than certain shows that are on Broadway right now or have been on Broadway in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
It's become a big cult thing. All of the
show how big cast recordings are useful those are.
Right.
Jesus.
Right. Cast recordings immortalized the show in that way. What was the inspiration in bringing this new Heathers? When did it come to the UK again? Was that
It was 2018.
right before the pandemic.
I think, you're absolutely right. The writers and our director Andy Fickman, they are our fearless leaders. They are the Heathers behind Heathers, in a very, very positive way. And they're incredibly clever when it comes to the marketing of this show and the sharing of the content of this show. And they have kind of created this cult of corn nuts, which is what we call our fans. And I think it's from the generosity of their work and their spirit and, putting that cast album together, allowing that bootleg that sat and still sits on YouTube.
Yeah.
Very, very clever. It took Heathers out to the world, and that developed a hunger in the UK and I'm sure everywhere for people to want to see a production of Heathers. So,
right.
We were already on the front foot before we did a reading in 2017, before we did a fully staged production of it in 2018. There were people chomping at the bit to hear these songs and to get to know these characters live in the flesh.
Right. And Andy, it's funny, Andy directed Kevin Can Wait. And Kevin Can Wait shot here, and me and Christian were both in it. We both were background on Kevin Can Wait. Yeah, so I knew Andy from that because he was directing like pretty much every episode or every other episode, and we had a bunch of. So I went to go see it, and I had tickets to go see it before COVID or like I guess the year whenever it got canceled. But we were huge Kevin James fans, so I knew Andy from that, and then I was like, oh, I guess he's doing and Liv and Maddie too because I grew up on Liv and Maddie. And I was like, oh,
I think Kevin's coming to opening.
Oh, is he really? Yeah. Oh, cool. That's awesome. So I when I was like, oh, I didn't know he did theater at all. I just knew him from that.
Yeah.
So that's a funny little. And did he do the original as well?
Yes.
He did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
It was. I think it was Andy's idea.
Oh, okay.
He was certainly part of that initial
conception.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Andy comes from theatre. Andy and Kevin, they built a theatre in LA. And then both became incredible writers and directors in film and TV.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So theatre is their
base.
Starting point. Yeah, home base, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about this Heathers Dance Call. I was in the Heathers Dance Call. When was it? Like January, was it? I guess.
Yes,
something like that. It was one. I think it was one of my first auditions of the year.
January, February.
And they were filming outside of like the studio because they were doing a bunch of social media stuff. And
are you in the thing that went out on Instagram?
Yes. Yeah, and I'm in one of the backgrounds of that, and I was also the first call of the morning.
Yeah.
I always try to be the first one because I like dancing in the morning and it sets up my day. And I want to talk about. First of all, you led an incredibly organized, wonderful room, especially for that 10 a.m. call. You guys are setting it, and you were doing it with us, which is not always the norm. It's usually an associate who does it or something like that. But you were doing it with us, which I found helpful because you were providing some insight in that regard.
Right.
I want to talk about dance calls because there's a lot of difference in the way dance auditions are held here versus the UK, I'm gathering. Because I went in for Sunset Boulevard here, and or even the way Warren leads room. A big thing with the Brits that I've noticed, you don't clap after each week. So a dance call happens, everyone goes out. Okay, we're going to start our first group. First group goes out. First group ends. Next group goes out. Like, it's so much.
He's saying we do that.
No, you don't.
We don't do that.
Yeah, and at least when Warren was like, can we please, it's just killing time, And then also, I'm blanking on his name, but the choreographer of Sunset Boulevard.
Fabian.
Yes, Fabian. Yeah. Same thing. He was like, please stop the clapping, because any time a group would go out, people would clap for them. So that was one tidbit that I noticed. Yeah, tell me what you've noticed about the difference in American culture for auditions versus...
I don't think I've noticed the clapping. I don't mind the clapping.
Okay.
And I think especially on Heathers, there's such hype around it. And
Yeah.
Gifts, and there was all
yes, we were giving gifts at the dance call as well.
Craziness, which was beautiful. But,
it was cool.
I noticed a real commitment to the work. You know, so the talent is obviously there.
Yeah.
But I just felt everybody, there was just an extra layer of, I really want to get this. You know, whereas I think some of the kids in England right now, they get in their heads and then they trip themselves up and they're doing this instead of doing this. And I remember saying to Leah, my associate, wow, these kids really want this, you know, and their focus and their commitment, and it was very quiet while we were learning, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, it was a great combo too. It was so fun. It was so fun to learn. And a lot of everyone going into it knows the music, right? Like everyone, so there's an excitement there as well.
Yeah, we were trying out new material as well. You know, the show's had quite a development. You know, so it's the UK production, but with enhancements.
Oh, even enhancements from the 2018 production.
Oh,
yeah. What would you say is the biggest changes from this production and the original?
The original being 2014.
That bootleg production. The production
I
that
think
everyone knows.
The set and costume design is a big change. I think, you know, Marguerite Derricks was the original choreographer who, you know, a massive fan, obviously famed dancer, and Marguerite and I have been in touch over the years, and I know Marguerite didn't have a lot of time when they put the original production together. And you know, that production, it celebrates the material, and it's an incredible cast, but they funded it themselves.
Wow. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they funded the whole thing themselves to get it on the stage.
Wow.
And it was, you know, you could almost call it a workshop production.
Yeah.
Because of how it was put together. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
You know, all the talent and the team and everything was there, but we just had an opportunity to produce it properly.
Right.
You know, and that's what we brought back. And the team has been expanded, and we've looked at the script, and there's some 2014 stuff that's gone back in the script.
Okay.
There's some development that's taken it,
sure,
you know, onward.
further.
The costumes have had an uplift. The choreography has been revamped, and there's lots of stuff that I've wanted to do that we've not been able to do for years.
Oh, cool.
You know, so we've got stuck in there, and it's been a great process.
Yeah. I what would you say is the biggest difference that you've noticed in is this the first show that you've choreographed in New York?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you say is the biggest difference that you've noticed in process or anything from between working on a show in the UK versus working on a show here?
In terms of the cast?
In terms of anything.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One is our union rules are very different.
Oh, okay.
You know, so things are a lot stricter here.
Okay.
You know, and they are that way to protect everybody.
Sure.
But it makes everything quite regimented. So we've had to get our heads around that. Whereas at home, you know, things are quite fluid. If we want to like just grab somebody and do something in a break, or spend 10 minutes at the end of the day to workshop something or talk about something,
you have that.
We can do that, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, we ask permission, and
yes,
you know, we take people's grace for that. Whereas here, it's very much 10 to 6,
15,
and that is it. With your breaks in between, and,
right?
You know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Nothing outside of that, which you know, it's good because you know where you stand with it.
Sure.
But it's taken a bit of adjusting.
Yeah. On
our part.
That schedule I was familiar with from we at least at my college, we were doing that in college even, where it was like this is what you do. We were following union rules under college pretenses still.
Yeah, so you can feel that the cast, they don't know any different, you know. So it is what it is, and we have to work around that, which is great.
Yeah. So we're filming this in your preview period, and you guys open this week.
Yes.
And in just a little under a week. In the first two previews that have happened, what have you noticed already in terms of the excitement for the show? I mean, that first preview is hyper excitement. I'm sure people have bought that pre-sale. You know. Yeah. What have you noticed in audiences from?
Yeah. Well, you really get a feeling that the audience has waited a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and you hear those conversations, and you're chatting to people. We've done 2 previews, and there's been quite a few people that came twice.
Wow, already.
Already.
To the 2 previews.
Yeah. In different costumes as well, which is amazing. So we'll see if they're back again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Today's the day off for us. Yeah, we did. Andy and I, we kind of looked at the audience on the first preview, and we were like, "Wow, this is older than what we're used to in the UK."
Yeah.
And I think I said to you earlier, I think it's the generation that fell in love with Heathers in 2014 that are coming back, and they're booking those first previews and getting in to experience it because they've waited such a long time to see it.
Right.
You know, and then last night I noticed there were mothers and daughters, which is a common thing. You know, it's those that love the movie, and then the daughters that have fallen in love with the musical, and they're sharing that experience with each other, which
That's
is great.
special.
Yeah.
We have the children that I teach theater to are 9 to 18 years old. There are a huge group of like 9, 10, 11-year-olds that are obsessed with Heathers. I was the coolest teacher on the whole planet when I told them I auditioned for Heathers and when I wound up on the Instagram thing because they were so excited about this production. So you guys have crossed the gamut of like that, because that base is still there.
Yeah.
That like, you know, young adult, even younger than teenagers, is still there, plus the whole 10-year base that's coming into the show.
Yeah.
You also have a killer cast. Mackenzie Kurtz, Lorna Courtney, Olivia Hardy, Casey Likes. I mean, like, you guys have some heavy hitters.
Yes.
Tell me about what it's been like working with them. Mackenzie's, we talk about her so much on this show. She's one of our dream guests. She's a genius, comedy genius especially.
She is. She's a silent assassin, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's so cool to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I've noticed here that's different to the UK is that we sort of work as a community, and it's kind of panic stations, and everybody's helping each other out. And here, everyone just takes care of themselves. You know, they get their direction and they get their information and their choreography, and then they go away and they sort it out and they come back and it's done.
Yeah.
And Mackenzie is very like that. You know,
interesting.
She listens, and, you know, she'll take the note, and you never have to tell her again. It's just there. It's done.
Interesting.
She's playing with it, and very, very clever.
Yeah, that's special. What are you most looking forward to going into opening night?
I think the future of the show, it's been really exciting kind of digging back into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really exciting working with the cast and seeing what they bring to these characters, because at home we can only imagine what it's like to go to a high school in America. You know, so yes, this is set in 1989. Yes, this has some, you know, very graphic content and, you know, some difficult topics, but at the end of the day, it's about American teenagers surviving high school, you know, and how they treat each other. And it's got a very contemporary message about being kind and, you know, looking after those around you and, you know, being a good person. So I feel the show is more authentic in that sense than it has been in the UK, because we are sort of playing caricatures in a sense.
Right,
you know, we're playing what we think it might be like to experience this, whereas, you know, our cast here, they know. They know who these people are.
Yeah.
And so they're bringing their own real life experience into the roles, and so the show has a very different feel, very different tone.
Yeah. That's exciting.
This is interesting.
I'm so excited to see it. I'm stoked to see it. I mean, I've seen the bootleg, of course, so I'm highly anticipating this to see a stage, you know, a live production of it. I want to talk to you about what's next for you, if you can, and if not, we'll cut whatever we need to cut out. But we met through Richard Crawford. We want to shout him out, Richard. Hi, Richard. And because I worked with him on design scene on this Amazon immersive project, but you guys are working on this Nutcracker piece in London. And I think that's going to be my time to come to London.
Oh, great.
I'm planning it. I'm like, I really want to come, because he's raved about this production and about how exciting it is. You guys have taken over, like, something he said, like 6 floors or something like that.
Immersive theatre is a really big thing in London. You know, and
I wish it was bigger here.
Promenade theatre and immersive dining, and so that's how Richard and I met. So I've worked with Design Scene for, I think, about 15 years on various events, and Richard is a partner with Design Scene, and they do a lot of immersive stuff around the world, and we've come together. We collaborate really well. He's an incredibly creative guy. The Nutcracker, it's his brainchild, and I think, you know, Attila, who runs Design Scene, and his team, and Richard, they've done a lot of immersive. They've gone to see a lot of immersive projects, and they've sort of looked at it and gone, actually, with what we do, which is kind of bring the West End, you know, from my side of things into events and then into immersive, we can create something really special that hasn't been done before in London. Yeah. And, you know, that's what we're heading into. We're in pre-production at the moment. We've got a photo shoot for our Sizzle, for our EPK, literally as soon as I get off the plane next week.
Oh, wow.
And we're really excited. We've got an incredible cast. We've got people from Hamilton and Cabaret that are leaving those shows and stepping straight into our Nutcracker project. Incredible costume design and makeup, and I think it's going to make quite a splash.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's it's an immersive version of the Nutcracker, but with more of a narrative, is what he's explained to me, in the sense that there's a written script to it. It's it has.
So Richard has come up with this script and has given Clara, you know, the main character, just a bit more of a contemporary story.
Interesting.
You know, and I don't want to give too much away, but you know, just all of the characters that come in and around her world, take it to a completely different place, and we've incorporated the food into the storytelling.
Oh, there's a dining.
It's a dining.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
oh man, I love that.
It's an immersive promenade where you're going to walk in and there'll be like a grotto and experience, and then there's a drinking experience, then there's a gift experience, and then you go into the storytelling, and then that opens up into the space where you sit down, and I think it's a 4 or 5 course dining experience with the show.
Oh my gosh. And this is entirely, how true are you staying to the style of the Nutcracker? I mean, the Nutcracker is iconic. It's, you know, it's, and very different than, you know, it's very specific, I should say.
Yeah, it's Nutcracker with a twist.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're taking inspiration from Moulin Rouge, Cabaret.
Oh, interesting. Oh, cool. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
When do you guys go up? You guys around Christmas time, right?
Yeah, we start rehearsals on November 11th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we open just towards the end of November, I think.
Oh man, that's so exciting. I really want to come and see it, and everything he's told me about it is like thrilling, you know, and you guys still have some time, but I want to go see theater in London.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much I want to see out there, and there's so much I'm interested in out there. Okay, we want to do a fun little game with you.
Okay.
Because have you ever played with AI? Have you played with AI much?
Not really.
Okay, so because the podcast is called I Want to Be Like You,
we
call this segment AI Want to Be Like You. Okay. So because we've talked a lot about the UK US theater of it all. I wrote some terms. Oh well, I didn't write them. AI wrote them and gave me some terms that match UK terms in theater, and see how many of them align and see how many of them you know.
Okay.
So I'll riff off a term and see if you know what it means in America in terms of theater. Number 1, the legacy robe. Do you know what that is? Do you guys have anything like
that's
that?
That's a good start.
Okay. Do you guys have?
Is that a US thing or?
Yes, that's a
thing?
US thing.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
It used to be called the gypsy robe.
Right.
It was I think they do it in the UK, but it's given to the person on Broadway. It's given to the person who's been in the most shows.
Yes. Okay.
As an ensemble member.
That rings a bell.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Do
So they do it at every opening night, and it used to be called the Gypsy Robe. Now it's called the Legacy Robe, and they give you this beautiful robe with all of the shows that you've been in.
Oh.
It goes to the ensemble member who's done the most shows.
Ensemble member that's done the most.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know the term cattle call?
Yeah.
Is that a UK term as well?
Yeah, you came to my cattle call for Heathers.
Yes, I did. Exactly. A cattle call is exactly that, an open call with a bunch of people.
Although yours was an open equity call, which is different, right?
Yes, yeah.
So
if they do like Wicked held an open right after the movie, Wicked held an open call, and that was done at in a massive church basement with 6 different rooms and hundreds of people, and that was a little different.
Yeah.
Equity kind of monitors these equity calls.
Yeah, they've started doing them more and more actually in the UK.
Oh,
sort of
really?
died for a while, and they are coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sits probe.
Yes.
You guys have that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. See,
Yeah.
AI is a little wrong about some of these things. I didn't know if it was called something else.
Well, sits probe is where you sit and you have the orchestra play the music.
The first time
and
the orchestra
you sing
comes.
along and you sing through all of the music in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't do a sits probe on Heathers. We did a Vandal probe.
Vandal probe. Okay, I was going to ask
Yeah.
about that one next.
Which
That's
is
like an
where
extra.
You often don't have time to do a sits probe.
Yeah.
So the Vandal means that you get up and you do the staging.
Yes,
and so
while
you're
the
singing
band is there
along.
as well.
It's a sound check.
Yeah.
It's a movement call.
It's a little bit of
and
everything.
It's a sits probe at the same
Yeah.
time.
Okay, do you guys have in the UK Ghostlight? Maybe?
Ghostlight. Andy Fickman had Ghostlight in his. He does an email to the cast every night, and yeah, tell me about it.
Ghostlight in the UK, according to AI at least, it's called a safety light.
Okay.
And it's the light that's left on the stage at the end of the night.
Yeah.
As the superstition behind it, from what I understand, and there are people who will watch this who will, give me more information on it. But it was, it's kind of like for the ghosts in the theater,
Right,
and so
okay.
you leave it on overnight to it's for the ghosts, to attract the ghosts. Otherwise, it creates like a bad luck. There's a lot of superstitions, like
Yes.
stuff like that,
Yeah,
like the whole
okay.
Scottish play thing, or like things like
Yeah.
that. Like
Don't
in
say
theater,
it.
there's a lot of right. Okay, do you guys say break a leg in the UK?
Recollect, yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. AI said that there's this, it's hookus or something? Is that?
Chukkers.
Chukas.
Yeah, that's Australian.
Oh, that's
not
Australian.
UK.
Okay. AI
Yeah.
needs to get it in check.
It does.
Yeah.
In
Strike.
Germany, they say toy, toy, toy.
Toy, toy, toy.
Yeah.
And who says merde? Who?
Brazilians say
Brazilians
that.
say
Yeah, but I
married.
think it's French as well.
Okay. Yeah. Strike. Do you have a strike? Do you know what strike is?
To strike a prop.
Yeah,
strike something
we'll
from the
close.
stage.
Yeah, and strike is like something a part of the process in I don't know about a long running show, but in like a say limited show, or the strike is what happens at the end. You strike the set and you take them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the same thing. And last one, papering the house.
That's never going to happen on Heathers.
No, it is not.
But papering the house is when the producer has to give away free tickets.
Yes, comping
to
people.
fill the seats.
Yeah. Okay. See, so
Yeah,
there are a
to
lot of
fill
terms
the
that are
house.
similar. Some are similar. Yeah. There it is. That's AI. I want to be like you. That's interesting. How many things? Like I've always wondered the parallels especially because I've never been. But I have a lot of friends who work on cruise ships and whatnot, and I'll meet people who are from London who have very different experience, and it's like something that you don't realize, and then it'll be something small like that. Interesting. Okay. We always manifest a dream guest. We want you to give us a dream guest to be sitting in this chair. It could be anyone. We've had people give us Carol Burnett, and we've had it could be all over the gamut.
Wow.
People, Ziran, who gave us Carol Burnett.
On the spot. Oh gosh. Anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie Allen.
Debbie Allen, I'll take it. Perfect. That comes full circle. That's great.
Yeah.
Debbie Allen, I'll take it. Okay. And lastly, we asked the same question. We started by asking you who was your I want to be like you as a kid, and now we want to conclude by asking you who is your I want to be like you now. And it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be a celebrity. It could be someone in your life. It could be whoever you'd like.
I'm content with who I am.
Great. We've gotten that answer
is that an
before.
answer?
Oh no, yeah, we've gotten that answer before for sure.
I think, I'm trying to work on being just confident in the moment and happy with where we are in life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. I think it gets harder as you get older, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that bravado, it slips away, and, complications and responsibilities kick in, and so, I want to be like me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to be like you too. There it is. I want to be like Gary Lloyd. Thank you so much. Thank you. I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Christian Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Jake Santora, Richard Crawford, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, and of course, Gary Lloyd.